Oftentimes, many high performers, people who are high intensity people in the office, lean towards going to that type of workout, and I'm going to hopefully break down for you and maybe convince you, maybe not, because this is a real tough one for a lot of people, that you don't necessarily need to sweat in order to be in the best shape of your life. My name is Brian Pannuzzo. I help successful professionals build an elite body and mind outside of the office without sacrificing performance and way less time and effort than you think. I know your life because I lived it for 20 years. If I can do this stuff, so can you. Welcome back to the show. My name is Brian. This is the Success Lift podcast, and I'm very appreciative of you being back. We are in the middle of July. We are in the dead heat of the summer. For a lot of us, that means super hot, sticky, muggy temps. It's a little bit harder to be outside during the day, during the work day, maybe getting your steps in if you're somebody who pays attention to me and is trying to move your butt a little bit more. I just recently shared with clients some of the similarities that my most successful clients have had in the years that I've now worked with people. And moving, I'll share this maybe at a later date on a podcast, but moving a lot on a daily basis was one of the critical similarities that every one of my clients that have gotten epic transformations have had. Now, there are a number of different things that they do and components of success that they have executed on a regular basis in order to get there. But moving their butts is one of them, and that's a little bit harder to do during the dead of the summer, but there are ways around it, and we have all of the hacks for you inside of my programs, because sometimes you just can't go outside and start sweating your you-know-what off and go back into the office and just be a complete puddle. And so that is the one time a year that I actually have sympathy for my clients, and we work to find other ways for them to get their cardio in, to get their steps up, and to avoid being sweaty swamp ass sitting at your desk at 2 p.m. Speaking of sweaty you-know-what, I want to talk this week about a very common misconception that I see just about everybody inside of corporate America making before they start paying attention and maybe working with me, of course. I see a lot with clients that I begin to work with. I see it a lot from clients inside of my team program, my company program that I run. Oftentimes those people hang on to this need to do this thing that I'm going to talk about much longer than my one-on-one clients, because my one-on-one clients, quite frankly, pay me out of their own pocket, not out of the company's pocket. They likely have a higher level of desire because they've made a choice to hire somebody and to work with somebody. And there's just more connection and trust there. And so I break those people down much quicker than I break some of my corporate team clients down. But that doesn't mean I don't try. And I definitely convey this message to everyone that I work with. And it's important to do this on a podcast and not just on like a 60-second video, because context is very important always in fitness and nutrition and mental performance. Context is very important. And so when you say something like strength over sweat, or prioritize strength over sweat, or why you're making a mistake by doing all this cardio and not focusing on strength, that can be a little misleading. It can be a little clickbaity, and it requires some context. But overall, if you want to chunk up high enough, I think far too many people make that mistake. They prioritize the endorphin rush of the sweat that you get from a tough workout. How often have you heard other people, or maybe you, have said something to the effect of, I got a great sweat in. I got to go get a sweat. I got to feel like I burned off whatever it is I just put in my body. Maybe that's too many calories from food. Maybe that's after a boozy night or two. You feel like you gotta sweat it out. And there is evidence to suggest that that is a helpful phenomenon, because when we start to produce endorphins, dopamine, we can feel better. There is this euphoric effect that a tough workout can have for us, for our benefit. Unfortunately, oftentimes, many high performers, people who are high intensity people in the office, lean towards going to that type of workout. And I'm going to hopefully break down for you and maybe convince you, maybe not, because this is a real tough one for a lot of people, that you don't necessarily need to sweat in order to be in the best shape of your life. Again, very contextual, and it requires a bit more explanation. So let's just cover quickly that it is a fact. It is a fact that you can look your best and you can be in amazing physical shape, never sweating. All right. I went through a period of about 2 years of my life over not this current year, but previous to that, where I sweat very little, not 0 times, but like not more than 10 probably. And I'm not talking about I walked outside on the East Coast in the middle of the summer and it was 95 degrees and 75% humidity, right? I'm talking about intentionally getting a workout in that I started to sweat because of it. And I ended up 10% body fat and in the best shape of my life and pretty jacked and very lean, ripped, as they would say, right? So you can get in the best shape of your life and not sweat. The old saying, the abs are made in the kitchen, is very much true. We could shed a significant amount of body fat off of your body without having you sweat. I just need you manipulating your nutrition. I need you lifting weights. There's going to be something that we talk about obviously a lot with this title. And I need you moving at a low intensity, i.e. walking, all right? And all of those can be done without necessarily being a puddle of sweat. It's a bad marker for your success, all right? So rather than just, whatting on sweating the entire time, dumping on sweating, I'm trying to curse a little less on this podcast. Rather than dumping on it, let's talk about the benefits of strength, all right? Because there is a place for cardiovascular activity in your routine for overall health and longevity, for your cardiovascular health, not necessarily for your body composition. And why this requires more long-winded explanations is because when most people hire me or a coach or go to a trainer or you ask them what their goals are, they talk about something physical. Deep down, they want to look better. They want to feel better about how they look. We would call that an aesthetic goal. If you have an aesthetic goal, or it's one of the major goals of yours, and you are attempting to achieve that by getting your heart rate up and getting sweats in, I would ask you to evaluate how that's going for you, how it's gone in the past, and do you actually have the results that you want? And I would say 9.9 times out of 10, the answer is no. Because it's very hard to achieve an elite body composition via cardiovascular activity. Instead, what we ask clients to do is to prioritize strength over sweating. It doesn't mean that they can't sweat. I have clients that we program cardiovascular activity into their weekly regimen. It is a foundational component of what we do. But if you're just looking to look your best, we're going to attack strength, okay? We want to focus on building muscle as much as we can if the goal is body transformation, all right? Let's talk a couple of reasons why. Why would you want to think that way? Well, first of all, I love the fact that that focus, by definition, has to be a long-term one. I can get you to zoom out. I've talked about zooming out before, and think about a 1 to 2 year time horizon, whether it's with me or whether it's just on your own, I don't care, but I want you thinking in years and executing in days. Think in years, visualize in years, have goals in years, execute in days. That is going to be the combination that gets you the results that you truly want. And building strength is a multi-year endeavor for people, for better or worse. Now, you can absolutely see a lot of progress very quickly, especially if you're somebody who we would call a newbie. If you remember back in the day when you were maybe a teenager or in college or whenever you decided to pick up weights, if you have in the past, you will remember the gains that you made on a frequent and consistent basis. And they happen fast. Every week when you walked into the gym, you were hitting what we call PRs, personal records, personal bests. You were going in and the weight was just going up and up and up, and you were getting stronger and stronger. And that doesn't happen anymore as a 47-year-old who's been lifting weights for 20-ish years off and on. Now, the beauty of, for some of you who may be in your 30s, 40s, or 50s, who doesn't have an extensive strength training background, is newbie gains can happen at any age. Newbie gains can happen for somebody who's 44, who stopped lifting when they were 31, when they started to have kids. If you have a 13-year gap in between your strength training, when you start again, you're gonna feel weak, but you're going to hit these newbie gains, and it's going to be invigorating for you because you're gonna walk into the gym and you're gonna hit personal best after personal best for a period of time. And so it forces us to take a longer term approach. Sweating, calorie burning off what you just did yesterday, to me is highly correlated to looking at what a scale says on a daily basis and attaching your worth, your success, to what that number says. And so sweating is correlated, in my experience, obviously there are exceptions, and as part of a structured plan, sweating is a very strategic method of cardiovascular activity, right? Most of the time when you get your heart rate up, you're going to start sweating. Some people don't. Some people don't as much. Other people walk into a warm room and start sweating profusely, okay? So it's a better measure of longer term progress, and it gets you away from the short-term result of what does the scale say today based on what I did earlier or yesterday, all right? That's number one. Number two, muscle is metabolic gold. Muscle is metabolic gold. I wish I thought of that myself, but I saw it somewhere else. I don't know who said it, but I just want to make sure everybody knows that I didn't make it up. But I think that's pretty damn good. Why is it a metabolic gold? All right. Strength training builds muscle. All right. Building more muscle in a very small way, but in a way, will increase your metabolic rate. Right. If you and I sit on the couch and we watch TV for hours and we don't do shit, right? I have more muscle than you. Probably do. I've been working hard at it. Not everybody that listens to me is a scrawny, you know what? I got some jack friends who listen to this as well. So if that's the case, they get me. But for the most part, if you and I sit on the couch and watch TV and do nothing for hours, I am going to burn more calories just sitting there. We burn calories just sitting around. Our bodies need energy in order to do the things the body does on an hourly basis. And so my body, which has more muscle on it than maybe yours does, burns more calories because muscle is, in layman's terms, more expensive to service on a hourly, minute by minute, daily basis. And while this effect is relatively small over time, it does matter. And so the more muscle we have on our frame, traditionally, the higher your metabolic rate, AKA your metabolism, is going to be. I talk to people all the time who blame a slow metabolism on their lack of success, their lack of results. When we dig down into it, I'm not saying that people don't have different metabolisms. They absolutely do. I'm not saying you may not have hit the genetic lottery. The good news is neither did I, all right? And I look pretty darn good and feel pretty darn good. So that's not an excuse. It's a challenge for some people, but it ain't an excuse, all right? I won't let you be a little wallflower and decide that you've had this uphill battle in your life the entire time and you're destined to look and feel a certain way. I also acknowledge that I did not hit the genetic lottery like most people listening to this. If you did, you would probably be doing something like playing a professional sport for a living, right? So most of us didn't hit the genetic lottery, but there are levels to that. And it may be harder for you, and I fully acknowledge that, but it is possible, all right? And when you say things like, I have a slow metabolism, what's likely happening is you likely don't train, often very much in the gym, you don't lift weights, you likely eat lower quantities of protein, you likely don't move around very much, you likely sit around a lot. These are all ways to slowly reduce your metabolic rate over time. Another way to do that is to just do cardiovascular activity. It is a great way to reduce your metabolism over time. The other problem with just doing cardio is that it can stoke a bigger hunger response after the workout. So when you do that crazy HIIT class where you're flopping all over the floor, doing burpees like a walrus, and then you're jumping on boxes and you're doing like these half pull-ups and you're just really humping the air over and over again, or you're doing some sort of boot camp class where you run from one exercise, do 10 reps that you could have done 57 with if you actually just sat down and pushed yourself, right? Then you run to another exercise and do another 22 of those. Those you could have done 44 of if you had appropriate amount of rest in between that one and the other one. But now your heart rate's up, you're sweating like crazy, you're out of breath. You leave the workout class and you go, that was a great workout. And really all it was a good cardio session. There was benefit to it. You did get benefit from it, but you likely have come close to zero effect on your body composition, which most people would say is the goal. And then what you do, because you stoke a hunger response from that big workout, is you go home and if you're tracking your food, you put your food into the app and it's like, oh my God, I burned 477 calories. Not accurate, by the way. Calorie expenditure tracking is wildly inaccurate. So you go, I had a big workout, I can eat another 450 calories. Well, you probably didn't burn 450. And then you probably eat 675 instead of 450. And all of a sudden we're in the cycle that most people are, which is they go to the gym, they do the same stuff, and they look the same. And they do it for years and years and years. And what type of insanity is that? Why not just not go to the gym? At least you're not exerting yourself. I know so many people who are trying hard who don't look any different. They're at my gym, they're at your gym, I know them personally. Like, can we stop this? Can we stop this insanity? Okay? Building strength will improve your muscle, your composition of your total muscle on your body. That will change your body composition. I have now dozens of examples of clients inside my program that weigh the same weight that they did when they started with me. Well, Brian, don't most people hire you to help them lose weight? Sort of. They hire me thinking they want to lose weight. They ultimately stay with me to transform their body composition. So what typically happens with clients is, let's just say you are at 200 pounds. You may lose 35 pounds and go all the way down to 165. What happens at 165? People around you start going, hey, John, are you sick? Like, do you have like AIDS or something like that? Like, I'm worried about you, John. When in reality, where were the people worried about John when he was 35 pounds overweight? Where were you being a good Samaritan then? And so after John starts to get those, are you sick comments, we know we're pretty close. So we strip the body fat off of John. Now, John does look pretty darn skinny at 165 pounds. he probably should live in a healthy weight around 180 or 185, or maybe it's 172, or maybe it's 194. I don't know. It depends on the person. All right. And so what we do after that is we strategically start to add food while he trains intensely, lifting, building, and focusing on strength development, and his body weight starts to go up. And as the body weight starts to go up, yes, he does put on a bit of body fat while he puts on muscle, but his pictures start to look much better week after week, month after month. Now, building strength is a long-term game. You must be a long-term investor in order to build strength, because it doesn't just happen in 4 weeks. You can cut a significant amount of weight on the scale and body fat in 4 weeks if you significantly deprive yourself of nutrition, of calories. It is a lot faster and a lot easier to lose weight than it is to build muscle. That is a long-term approach. And so each month, the scale will go up, his pictures will look different, but better and better, but he'll start to have a little bit of body fat start to creep in. And people in a shirt, in a t-shirt, in his work shirt, people are going to start to say to John, what have you been doing, man? Like, you look bigger, dude. You look kind of jacked. And then that's when the real compliments start, not the fake ones like, hey, man, are you sick? Right? And then what happens is we reach a point where John goes, you know what? I've built a decent amount of muscle. I am really excited about the way I look, but we need to now shed a little bit of that body fat that we've accumulated while building muscle, because you really can't do one or the other. They kind of have to come in proportion. When I say proportion, outsized percentages of muscle versus fat in a muscle building phase. And you're likely going to lose a little bit of muscle mass during a fat loss phase as well. It's just the way it goes. We then take John into a mini little fat loss phase to tidy up the body fat that he's gained over the course of the muscle building phase. And John may even be as much as 200 pounds now, but maybe he's 185, maybe he's 190, a number that previously John would have said is unacceptable. Now, here's a real-time example. I have multiple clients who started with me at 185 pounds-ish and are now currently 185 pounds a year later, and they look dramatically different because we stripped a ton of body fat off of them, 15, 20, 35 pounds, depending on the client, and then we've strategically added that back, and now they look like a new human being. And so building strength, focusing on building strength, is a longer-term approach that will change your body composition. For me, I've also experienced that lifting weights, focusing on strength, builds a much higher level of discipline, okay? Because it requires structure, it requires a program, it requires progression, it requires intention. And yes, doing a tough cardio workout means that you have to show up and you have to be disciplined, but the long-term approach of building strength demands that. It demands that from you, all right? The last thing that I love about building strength over focusing on sweating and cardio is that over time, you tend to get injured less when you have a stronger foundational base. Muscle is the organ of longevity in the body. Didn't make that one up either. I believe that's Dr. Gabrielle Lyon from a great book that she wrote, right? It's the organ of longevity. As you age, having more lean muscle tissue on your body is so critically important. And it gets really hard to build muscle as you get older. It gets harder and harder and harder. And so the best time that you can do it is right now. Now, it may have been more ideal to do it 15 years ago, but the best time to do it is right now, right? Most people take this feeling of being tired and they equate it to success, all right? Whereas I want my clients to feel strong. I want them to feel lean. I want them to feel capable, okay? Like, if sweating in a workout is a side effect of that, that's cool. But strength is the goal when you work with me. Body transformation is one of the goals. We have many goals when we work with clients. But from a physical standpoint, it's traditionally body transformation. And so I don't want you to get yourself tricked into the dopamine and endorphin rush of the sweat equaling a great workout. All right. I haven't sweat much in a couple years. And I'm 10% body fat, and you can see my abs. And I'm in top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5%. I don't know what it is. Top 5% shape of people walking around on a regular basis. All right. The discipline that is required to build strength will serve you in every other area of your life as well. It'll serve you inside the office. It'll serve you in your marriage. It'll serve you as a leader. It'll serve you as a friend. Every single time, I promise you. And so I would love for you to take this high-level approach and think about what is something you can do this week to start to focus more on building strength and less on sweating. If you enjoyed this one, please share it with a friend. Hope you're having a great summer. Go get a lift in. Look pumped at the pool and at the beach. All right? And I'll see you back here next week. Take care.